Catholic Church in the United States, what Carter G. Woodson did for the secular world in the United States, Josephite said in 1871 that people that were descendants of slaves were human. And look to see those folks get to do all the things that God wanted them to do. That goes back to 1871, and it continues to move all the way through the history of the church. So when black people in the Catholic Church wanted to take on leadership roles in the church, and white people denied them that opportunity, the Josephites created this organization called the Knights and Ladies of St. Peter Claver to give black people the opportunity to take leadership roles in the Catholic Church. That was formed at the same time the NAACP was formed at the beginning of the 20th century. All of you know something about Brown versus Board of Education. Is that a fair statement?
Everybody, that was a question.
So let me continue, and you folks can practice when you're going to answer before the bell goes. But Susie Junior High School was one of the schools that was featured in Brown versus Board of Education. How many folks knew that? You can just put your hands up. You don't have to say anything. Okay? Before Brown versus Board of Education, the Catholic Church in Washington, D.C. said they're going to integrate every Catholic school in the city. And they work to integrate public schools also. How many of you know who John Thompson Sr. is? John Thompson Sr. coached Georgetown basketball. John Thompson Sr. was a kid that went to elementary school at Our Lady of Perpetual Help, right here on this hill.
No, I didn't know that.
John Thompson was one of the kids that they told. They said, son, I want you to go to that white school on the other side of the river and do the best that you can. Before Brown versus Board of Education. And they told a bunch of kids that went to school here to do that. You think about John Thompson. He graduated, college degree. One of the best college basketball coaches in the history of the game. The important thing to remember about John Thompson is the graduation rate he had from his basketball players, about 80% or better, for all the years that he coached. But he learned that going to school here at Our Lady of Perpetual Help. And if you check in, one of his great mentors was a guy by the name of Charles Stewart, who I don't think ever went to college. But Charles Stewart thought that every kid in the neighborhood was his child. And that's in addition to the 12 children that he had that went to school here also. But I talk about that in terms of the Josephites because they did that in the city. They taught people to go into those different places. And they did that in Alabama. They did that in Mississippi. They did that in Louisiana because they believed in black people. That's something about actually going ahead and being here. I'm a deacon in the Catholic Church. A lot of folks that ain't Catholic say, I didn't know the Catholic Church had deacons. When did that happen?
Step in my right leg almost nothing.
We'll skip the scripture lesson
That's a sign of
for
age.
today.
I'm gonna
But
get the second. And try that
the
again.
Catholic Church stopped having deacons in the church around 500 AD. And they brought them back in the 1960s. And the church was really worried about that. So the Josephite fathers and brothers that minister at this church petitioned the bishops in the United States to start training deacons. And the Josephites have served in the black neighborhood since 1871. And when they started that off, they went to the guys that they knew. So the first class of deacons in the Catholic Church started their formation in 1968. The Josephites went to get folks from the places where they knew people. So they took men from black Catholic churches in Baltimore and in Washington, D.C. And they brought men from other places. So in 1968, they took men from Richmond And in 1968, going to Richmond was just like going to Birmingham during the Civil Rights era. They took men from Baltimore, they took men from Washington. The majority of those men, since they came from Josephite parishes, were black. 3 of the men in that first class that was ordained on September 11th, 1971, went to church at St. Luke's. One of them is still living and still active, Deacon Joe Conrad. But that history is all a part of our history. That's part of being part of this particular church. We might not have had this game today were it not for the Josephites, because they're neighborhood people, and they did this when my sister Angela was joyriding one day in 1964 and didn't have gas in her car, and gas in her father's car, and her father said, "You're punished until you move out, get my car back." Father Ralph Roy Ransom went down to the place where the car with no gas was parked, climbed up on the roof, got the keys to the car, got a little gas, and got the car back to my father so that my sister Angela would have the opportunity to create the game. And the point of that is, the church is really an integral part of the neighborhood. The reason that we're here is that somebody did something to teach you this particular piece of history. You want to know that because this determines how far you can go. And the Josephites, especially, formed me from the time that I was a little tyke to the time that I'm here. And if we don't love people in the neighborhood the way that I was taught to love by the Josephites, these kinds of things wouldn't be possible. But because it's possible, you have the John Thompsons of the world, you have the Hiram Haywoods of the world, who was a Tuskegee Airman and one of those first permanent deacons to serve in the community. And those people are all the way through the neighborhood. But you have the chance to be that person. And you have the chance to be better than that person. That's why we're in the game. And if you're not in one of these chairs up here, pay attention, because the history is good for you.
Amen.
That was a good word to say. Let us say amen, and I'm going to let the game get started.
Amen.
Thank you. Excuse me, I'm going to call you folks out. This is called participation, so you have to acknowledge that knowledge. You didn't applaud, so give Mr. Tillman another round of applause, please. All right, now everybody sit up straight and tall. How many of you knew that there was a black national anthem? Raise your hand. Some of you did not. All right, so we're going to stand and we're going to sing. Everyone stand, please, for the black national anthem. And I'm going to have my ears open so I can hear who's singing. If you're not singing, or at least moving your mouth and reading, guess what? You just became a part of the order. All right? Everybody ready? Lift every voice.